All right, so as you know, the first 4 weeks of January are always a review in the Science of Mind churches of the first 4 books or chapters of the Science of Mind, as well as our other concepts and what we believe and our foundational beliefs. So I just wanted to take a little bit out of the second book, which is The Way It Works. And this reads, "The science of mind is not a special revelation of any individual. It is rather the culmination of all revelations. We take the good wherever we find it, making it our own insofar as we understand it. The realization that good is universal and that as much good as any individual is able to incorporate in his life is his to use is what constitutes the science of mind and spirit. We have discussed the nature of the thing as being universal energy, mind, intelligence, spirit, finding conscious and individualized centers of expression through us, and that man's intelligence is this universal mind, functioning at the level of man's concept of it. This is the essence of the whole teaching." And I wanted to finish with, "The gardener goes forth in faith to sow his seeds. He has learned that as he sows, so shall he reap, and that the law works for all alike. We must accustom ourselves to the concept of the impersonalness of the law, the availability of the law, and the mechanical accuracy of the law. If we can conceive only of a little good, that is as much as we can experience. We must instill into the mind the fundamental proposition that good is without bounds. Our good and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life." That's Psalms 23. We must get this concept rather than continuing to think there is a power of evil as opposed to the power of good. We experience good and evil because we perceive a presence of duality rather than unity. Then, knowing that the thing can work for us only through us, let us begin to accept today more good than we experienced yesterday, and to know that we shall reap a harvest of fulfilled desires. The time must come when we shall have left the apparent evil behind, when it shall be rolled up like a scroll and numbered with things which were once thought to be. Let us realize and work within this sound knowledge and perfect faith, that as high as we shall make our mark in mind and spirit, so high shall it be its outward manifestation in our material world." So if you haven't read the first 4 books, I suggest that you get your Science of Mind.
I thought you said rolled up as a squirrel.
Rolled up as no, scroll. Scroll.
It's a squirrel. I like squirrel.
So today we're talking about finding yourself. And as I mentioned earlier, it's our tradition in religious science to get back to the basics in January. A good place to start, a nice foundation. And these basics appear in 3 places. The first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind. They also are outlined in Ernest Holmes' classic piece, What We Believe, which is on the back of your program. And they're articulated in the 10 core concepts, which is a nice little bookmark that I spent a little bit of time trying to format on my computer. It was a little bit of a challenge, but we got it done. So that's something that you'll have those. Because with these talks that I'm doing, I'm jumping around. I'm not doing them in order. We're jumping around, pulling them in where they fit with the movies. So, as I said, we're skipping around, and the concepts depend on what I find in our umbrella theme, which is animating your life. And this is through the universal principles that I happen to find in these animated movies, many of which are Disney. We're using the animated movies of Happy Feet, that was last week, Finding Nemo, which is today, Shrek, which is next week, and Mr. Homer will be presenting that talk. He's wearing green.
She thinks I'm an ogre. So.
Yeah, he's wearing green and the ogre color, so that will go with that. And Cars, which is our final Sunday, thanks to Rob, to illustrate our basic teachings and with the intention of making this month really interesting for you and for me as well. So today we're talking about finding yourself. And the movie illustration is the truly heartwarming movie, Finding Nemo.
Oh,
This is Nemo. Okay, I found him.
Did you have them or did you have to go buy them?
Oh no, we had him.
That's what I
Yeah, actually, Nemo.
Those are
they're
tigers, right?
antenna toppers. And when I get a new car and I no longer have one, I'm going to buy an antenna just so I can put toppers because I love my toppers. But Nemo this year in our manger scene showed up above in the barn, just sitting there. I thought, great, how'd he end up there? I have a daughter who switches things around, so there was Nemo. We found him. So who's seen Finding Nemo? Yeah?
I think.
No? Okay. All right. Well, if you haven't seen it, or as a refresher, for those that might have forgotten it, it was a little while since I'd seen it. It's about a clownfish, Marlin, who is a nervous Nellie. And his wife and their thousands of eggs, they've taken up residence in an anemone where Marlin hopes they will be safe, but they aren't safe, are they? No. The wife and all but one egg get eaten by a barracuda. It's kind of sad. I don't know, something about Disney and the mothers, they tend not to make it. But
that story.
Yeah. Anyway, this tragic event confirms that within Marlin, that life is to be feared. The one egg grows up to be Nemo, who has one malformed fin. So you can see that right here. He's got a nice normal one here, and this one's kind of little. And so Marlin has vowed to never let anything happen to Nemo. And to say that he is overprotective of this little fish is kind of an understatement. But Nemo grows up, and it's time for him to go to school, fish school, right? Marlin follows Nemo on his first school outing because he's so afraid that something awful is going to happen to him. And his fear makes Nemo very mad, and it sends him over the reef into the open water, which Marlin knows is a death sentence to any fish. And Nemo gets scooped up by a diver, and he gets taken back to the diver's fish tank. It's in a dentist office. You know how they always have those fish tanks. Now I wonder, when I think about this, well, where did this little fish come from, right? And so the rest of the movie is about Marlin trying to find Nemo and Nemo trying to get out of the fish tank and go back to his father. And then, of course, there's Dory. I just love Dory. And what's interesting is that Dory's voice is played by Ellen DeGeneres. And for years, Ellen kept saying, what are they going to do? They've done Cars 1, 2, 3, 567, but when are they going to do Finding Nemo? I think they are going to do a Finding Nemo too, but I'm not sure how that'll work out. But she's hysterical. And this movie is just fun to watch. It's very uplifting. It's very, very funny. I did laugh, and there were moments when I choked up too. So it has so much heart, and it's filled with lessons about connection and friendship and helping others and how we're not in this world alone, right? Overcoming adversity, persistence and determination, and the power of love. And I could really build sermons for days on all of those topics, but I don't want to do that because I really want to focus on 4 areas of basic science of mind concepts that were also in the movie. So we'll start with number 1. Our inherent creative power balanced by the idea that God is good. This movie balanced these two seemingly opposing ideas very well. First, we have our creative nature. And this is in the We Believe. We believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thought and acts upon it. And core concepts 2 and 3, they're basically the same, but they're stated differently. Spirit, soul, and body, and divine creative process. Core concept number 7, reciprocity. Behind all that is visible is that which is invisible. We are what we are to the world is to us. Marlin absolutely created the entire situation with his fear. He was so terrified that something bad would happen to his son that something bad did happen. Something tragic did happen to Marlin. His wife and all their eggs got eaten by the barracuda, all but one. But he let the fear control his life and create even more challenges. His fear literally pushed Nemo out beyond the reef. He kept yelling, "You must come back, it isn't safe, it isn't safe," and sure enough, it wasn't. As he was yelling to his son, up behind Nemo comes that giant, which was the diver who scoops him up and takes him away, and he ends up being a gift. He wants to give him as a gift to his niece. Who hasn't had a tragic experience? Who here has not had a tragic experience? We really all have. How we respond is what matters because the divine creative process is always working. Marlon lived most of the movie in fear and therefore created experiences to be afraid of. His world supported his belief. It rushed in. The universe always says yes. It always says yes. If you say the world's a dangerous place, wow, and you start looking for it, just like with our experiment, we start looking for things that are dangerous, guess what? We're going to find it. That's what happens. And there's also in this movie a great lesson about the goodness of God. We believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. Marlon had to find his son. His fear wouldn't have allowed him to make the journey he needed to make to find him, but he happened upon another fish, Dory, a blue angelfish, who literally became his angel. Dory was an embodiment of God's eternal goodness, loving kindness, and givingness of life to all. And I think Ellen would really like that description of Dory, don't you think? I think she'd be very, very pleased with that. Who knows the main feature, the main characteristic of Dory? Does anybody remember?
She's forgetful.
Oh yes, she has short-term memory loss. What's orange and striped? Me. What's orange and striped and swims around the ocean? Me. She keeps asking like it's a joke. And Marlon keeps saying, me. It's kind of funny. But she can't remember from one minute to the next. And what this does is it gives her a sense of freedom and a go-for-it attitude. Think about it. If you didn't have all the baggage of everything you remembered coloring your decisions going forth, wouldn't that release you and give you a great deal of freedom to make new decisions? It's kind of an interesting thing. She kept them moving forward. She taught Marlon not to fear. She taught him to trust, which we're going to explore in a moment. And it was her positive attitude about finding Nemo that caused him to ultimately find him. She simply knew that they were going to find him. She knew. There was really no other option for her. There was no doubt. This speaks to the power of the spiritual community that you spend time with, the people who know for you when you cannot know for yourself. When you're in that place where you're remembering everything and all the reasons why something cannot work, and you have that group of people who say, oh, but we see something different. We know. That's what a spiritual community does, and that's what practitioners do. And that's someone that you can call when you can't know for yourself. You can call a practitioner, you can call me, and we can know the truth for you. And the reason that this works is because there is only one mind. And when I know the truth about you and you are open to knowing the truth, even when you can't do it for yourself, it does have an impact on you. We're not in this alone. We're all one. We're all one. Even when our energy rises up, it affects everyone in the world. It raises the cumulative energy up. There is a loving, giving presence. The universe is not just the law. It's easy to get stuck in the law. It's easy to get in the logical, well, cause and effect. You do this, you get that. But there's also love. It's love. Love points the way, and law makes it happen. And they're both needed. Both are extremely important. So number 2, abundance. Core concept number 6, we live in an infinitely abundant universe, and that infinite abundance is available to us simply because of who we are. In fact, access to it is our divine birthright. We don't have to do anything. It's already given. Jesus made this promise. It is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. So who's standing in the way of us getting the kingdom? We are. We're the ones who are blocking ourselves. Not so much something that occurred in the movie, but just the movie itself. It's when you think about the abundance of the ocean, and I know Doug goes out and dives for abalone, and
Wow.
You must see the tremendous abundance that is in the ocean.
When the water's clear.
When the water's clear. Well, and that's a good metaphor too. How much abundance can we see when our vision is cleared, when the field is cleared? And not contaminated with our fears and our thoughts, right? Excellent example. And it's the textures of the ocean and the variety of color, and it's just amazing. And all of the schools of fish. You know, you see them in the movies where they're swimming back and forth. There's so many of them.
Yeah, the glass bottom boat at Catalina shows everything clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like poor Doug has to swim in the.
The murky.
depths.
There's a scene when they swim over grass and out fly a school of small fish, and these fish are every color imaginable. And of course, it's all just animation, but it's an animation of what truly is out there. All of the colors are there. The ocean itself is a visible example of the infinite abundance in this universe. But we sometimes block our abundance and our good, don't we? Because it doesn't come packaged like we think it should. And so we dismiss it or we refuse to accept it. Dory wasn't exactly the companion that Marlin would have chosen. She could be a bit annoying at times with her forgetfulness, but she was also the comic relief whose positive nature kept Marlin going when he was about to drown, no pun intended, in despair. Well, actually, pun intended. All right, so number 3, immortality. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. Core concept number 9, this body may have a shelf life, but our souls are eternal. This may be a bit of a stretch, but I'm not sure I'm really going to get any other chance in the other movies that we're talking about that will be any closer to this basic premise. So I'm going to take the opportunity now. We have Crush. You remember Crush, the sea turtle? He's the cool surfer dude, okay? Marlin asks him, "How old are you?" "I'm 150, dude, and still young." I love that. Our souls are eternal and still young. Isn't that amazing? So remember, time and space are human creations. Let's move on to number 4, which is divine intuition. I saved this for last. It's my favorite. And I think it's the most meaningful. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through the intuitive and spiritual nature of the individual, and that any person may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God, with God within. Let's look at the trench experience in the movie, okay? Dory is told to swim through the trench, not over it. Marlin doesn't hear this. They get to the trench and it looks very scary to swim through it, and Marlin refuses. "Let's swim over it." Dory can't remember being told not to swim over it, but she has an intuitive knowing. "Oh, we're not supposed to swim over it. I've got a feeling we should swim through it," she says. Marlin refuses, and his fear overrides her knowing. Have you ever had that happen? Where someone says, no, we have to do it this way. I know I have probably done that with Rich. And they swim over it. And they swim over it, and what happens? They get entangled in a mass of jellyfish, and they both get stung. I mean, it's just zzz, and they both get hurt pretty badly, but Dory particularly. And later they get scooped up by a whale, and they're swimming around inside of his mouth. That's pretty darn scary. Dory is sure they're going to get out, because she can speak whale. Remember? She's speaking whale in this movie, and he's going, "You can't speak whale," and she's going, "Wow." He goes, "What are you doing? You're not speaking whale." But she's convinced she's speaking whale, and she's sure they're going to get out. And Marlin cannot possibly see how. And they're hanging on for dear life as the whale swallows. Dory then says it's time to go. It's time to let go, and everything will be all right. Marlin says, "How do you know something bad is not going to happen?" And her classic reply is, "I don't. I just know it's time to let go." Marlin remembers the time earlier when he didn't listen to her about swimming through the trench and how badly she got hurt, so he lets go just as the whale blew water through its blowhole and out they popped, right? Dory was connected. She trusted. She didn't intellectually know anything. She didn't logically know that they would be okay, but she felt it deep in her gut. She knew it. Between the what we believe statements and the 10 core concepts, there are 23 of the basic science of mind principles. Some of them are overlapping and some are not. Today, we covered nearly half of them, 9 of them. And I'll summarize those 9 in my own words around the 4 illustrations this morning. We are creative beings, and through the workings of the law, we create the experiences of our lives, good, the bad, and the ugly. But there is more to our world than just the law. There is also the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all, which is ever available to us. And all we have to do, where did it go? All we have to do is open our eyes to see it, and it will help us along. We live in an infinitely abundant universe and have the divine birthright to inherit the kingdom. We are immortal beings, eternal and still young, dude. We have a direct connection with God because we are one with God. And all the wisdom, knowledge, direction, guidance we can ever need or want is right inside. It's within. We just have to listen, and we just have to trust. Marlin really learns these lessons as well. He learns them, and by the end of the movie, he's begun to embody them. We might say that as he was finding Nemo, he was also finding himself. And my, what a difference that really made for him. It created a life of freedom, happiness, and joy. And through these principles, learning them and embodying them, we too can find ourselves and find our life of freedom, happiness, and joy. Have a great journey, and so it is.